Suppose you've been having trouble with your eyes lately and decide to see an optometrist for help. After briefly listening to your complaint, he removes his glasses and hands them to you. Put these on, he says. I've worn these pair of glasses for 10 years and they've helped me. I have an extra pair at home, you can have these. So you put them on, but it only makes the problem worse. This is terrible, you explain. I can't see a thing. Well, what's wrong, he asks. They work great for me, try harder. I am trying, you insist. Everything is a blur. Well, what's the matter with you? Think positively. Okay, I positively can't see a thing. Boy, aren't you grateful, he scolds, and after all I've done for you. What are the chances of you going back to see that optometrist? Very low. Why? Because you don't have confidence or trust in someone who doesn't diagnose before they prescribe. How often do we diagnose before we prescribe? We tend to rush in and fix things with good advice, but we often need to take the time to diagnose and understand the problem first. The most important principle in interpersonal communication is seek first to understand, then to be understood, which is Stephen Covey's fifth habit of highly effective people. My name's Jacob Curtis. I'm a CPA and co-owner of Utah Valley Quilting and the founder of Curtis Accounting Solutions, where we help quilt shops piece together financial freedom by doing bookkeeping, payroll, and taxes, and providing business strategy and coaching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the fifth habit, seek first to understand, then to be understood. So please leave a comment below and remember to like, share, and subscribe. With all of the difference between you and the people you're trying to work with to manage the resources and accomplish big results, how do you do it? How do you surpass your limitations and perceptions to cooperatively deal with the issues and find win-win solutions? The answer is to seek first to understand, then to be understood. So let's focus on that just for a minute. There are 4 general forms of communication: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. You've spent years developing the first 3, but you probably haven't yet to spend years developing your listening skills, specifically empathetic listening. Proverbs 18:13 says, "The one who gives an answer before he listens, this is foolishness and disgrace for him." Most people listen with the intent only to reply, not to understand. Empathetic listening is listening with the intent to understand from the speaker's perspective, not their own. Empathetic listening gets you inside the other person's frame of reference and point of view. You look at the world through their lens and see it the way they see it. Empathy is not sympathy. Sympathy is a form of agreement and judgment. It is sometimes an appropriate response, but people feed off of it, making them dependent on sympathy, which is unhealthy. The essence of empathetic listening is not that you agree with them, but that you fully and deeply understand that person emotionally and intellectually. Empathetic listening involves much more than registering or reflecting or even understanding the words that are said. Empathetic listening is listening with your ears, eyes, and heart. You listen for feeling, for meaning, for behavior, you feel. James tells us to be quick to listen and slow to speak. And in Romans, Paul tells us to rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. Empathetic listening is powerful because it gives you accurate data to work with. Instead of projecting your viewpoint and assuming thoughts, feelings, motives, and interpretations, you're dealing with the reality inside the other person's head and heart. You're listening to understand. You're focused on receiving the deep communication of another human. Some response techniques are less effective in showing that you hear what they say. These autobiographical responses mirror their words back to them from your perspective rather than theirs. For example, when advising, you offer what you would feel in their situation and how you might deal with that problem if it were up to you. And when probing, you ask questions from your frame of reference rather than theirs. And when interpreting, you explain how you see the situation given your experience and attach your meaning to it. When evaluating, you judge them and their thoughts, agreeing or disagreeing. These approaches and responses devalue the other person and their feelings and communicate that you're more interested in your thoughts than theirs. You will only be able to see the world as others see it once you develop the desire, your character, and empathetic listening skills. There are 4 stages to developing empathetic listening skills: mimicking content, rephrasing the content, reflecting the feeling, and then combining rephrasing content with reflecting the feeling. The first and least effective stage is to mimic content. This is often insulting to people, but it at least causes you to start listening. Mimicking content is easy. You listen to words that come out and then repeat that. For example, "Boy, Mom, I've had it. School's for the birds." And you respond with something like, "You've had it. You think school's for the birds." He did not advise, probe, evaluate, or interpret, but you have at least shown that you're paying attention. Stage 2 is rephrasing the content. It's a little more effective, but it's still limited to the verbal communication. So continuing with our example. Boy, Mom, I've had it. School's for the birds. And you say, you don't want to go to school anymore. This time, you put their meaning into the words. You're thinking with the logical part of your brain. The third stage is reflecting feelings. Continuing with our example, boy, Mom, I've had it. School's for the birds. You say, you're feeling really frustrated. Now, you're not paying attention as much as to what they say, but how they feel about it. The last stage combines stages 2 and 3. You rephrase the content and reflects the feeling. Continuing with our example, boy, Mom, I've had it. School's for the birds. And you respond, you're really frustrated with school. And frustrated is the feeling and school is the content. You're using both sides of your brain to understand both sides of their communication. When you reach this fourth stage of empathetic listening, you are authentically seeking to understand. You allow them to vent a little and work through their thoughts and feelings. Let's follow through with our example of our fictitious teenage child. They say, boy, Mom, I've had it. School's for the birds. What they're really saying is, I want to talk to you. You respond, you're really frustrated at school. And your child is thinking, that's right, that's how I feel. And they respond with, I sure am. It's totally impractical and I'm not getting a thing out of it. And you respond empathetically, you feel like school is not doing you any good. And they think, is that what I mean? They reply, well, yeah, I'm just not learning anything that will help me. I mean, look at Joe. He dropped out, he's working in cars and he's making real money. Now that's practical. And you respond, you feel that Joe really has the right idea? And they're thinking, well, maybe. And they reply, well, I guess he does in a way. He's making a lot of money right now, but I bet he'll be upset with himself in a few years. You reply, you think Joe is going to feel he made the wrong decision. And they respond with, he's got to. Just look at what he's giving up. I mean, if you don't have an education, you can't make it in this world. And you reply, education is important, rephrasing and reflecting their meaning. And they reply excitedly, oh yeah, if you can't get a diploma, you can't get a job or go to college. What are you going to do? You've got to get an education. You say it's important to your future. It is, they say. And you know what? I'm really worried. Listen, you won't tell Dad, will you? You say, I get it. You don't want your father to find out. Well, no, not really, they respond. I guess I can tell him. He'll find out eventually anyways. Today I took a reading test that said I'm on a 4th grade reading level, and I'm a junior in high school. I'm going to fail. I figured that since I will fail, I should just quit first, but I really don't want to quit. And you reply, you feel torn. You're in the middle of a dilemma. And they reply, what do you think I should do, Mom? How many times did you want to say something different in this conversation? Lots of times, I'd imagine. But what a difference it makes when you seek first to understand and get to the real problem when we diagnose first, right? As long as we respond logically, you can effectively ask questions and give counsel. But the moment you respond emotionally, you can lose all the trust you've gained and will need to start empathetically listening again. Once you have gained enough trust, you can now influence and transform the conversation and their ideas. Sometimes transformation requires no outside counsel whatsoever. Often people have the chance to talk through it. They resolve that problem alone. I've gone through the skills, but skill alone is insufficient. You need to have sincere desire to understand. People resent any attempt to manipulate them. Empathetic listening takes time, but it takes less time than it takes to go back and correct misunderstandings. As you practice empathetic listening, you communicate that you sincerely desire to understand them and are making an effort. Sincerity is a prerequisite to trust, and trust is needed to accomplish significant results. The more trust between you and those you're trying to work with, including employees, vendors, customers, spouses, and family, the more you can accomplish. For the second half of the equation, then to be understood, knowing how to be understood is equally vital to reaching win-win solutions. When you present your own ideas clearly, specifically, visually, and more importantly, contextually, in the context of a deep understanding of their views and concerns, you significantly increase the credibility of your ideas. So seeking first to understand, then to be understood, lifts you to a greater accuracy and integrity with your interactions. And people will know that you're sharing ideas that you genuinely believe, considering all the known facts and viewpoints that will benefit everyone. And so in business, set up one-on-ones with your employees, listen to them, understand them, set up stakeholder information systems in your business to get honest, accurate feedback at every level, from customers to suppliers and employees. Make the human element just as important as the financial or technical element. You save tremendous amounts of time, energy, and money when you tap into the human resources of a business at every level. When you listen, you inspire a loyalty that goes beyond just the 8 to 5 physical demands of the job. Seek first to understand. Before problems arise, before you try to evaluate and prescribe, before you present your ideas, seek to understand. When we deeply understand each other, we open the door to creative solutions. Our differences are no longer stumbling blocks. Instead, they become stepping stones to synergy. I would love to hear from you as you apply this principle, as you practice it. Please leave a comment below and email me at jacob@curtisaccountingsolutions.com and tell me how it's going. Thank you for watching, and follow me at Curtis Accounting Solutions on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. Thanks. Talk to you soon. Bye.